Okay, so hello and welcome to another webinar from Nathan Trust. My name is Philip Nathan. I head up the client services team, and today we will be going through the frequently asked questions that we normally get from prospects and customers that we're dealing with for setting up new businesses in Ireland. We had a number of questions sent in to us before, so we're going to mix them up, and we usually get a number of questions while we're going through the webinar as well. So there's a Q&A section in the webinar. You can see that. So the best thing to do if you have a question is add it into the Q&A, and we will get to it and or put it on the chat. But there's also going to be a recording of the webinar, so that will be sent to you, to anybody who registered, and you'll be sent a link to the recording on our YouTube channel. So I suppose without further hesitation, we get into the first question, which is always, can I set up a company in Ireland if I am non-resident here? So the simple answer is yes, but there's, like everything else, there's a couple of things you need to pay attention to. So if you are non-resident in Ireland, that's fine. But if you're non-resident, if you're not resident in the EEA, which is Europe plus Switzerland and Norway, then you need to have a Section 137 bond. The rules in Ireland stipulate that at least one director needs to be resident in the EEA. Now, it's important to distinguish residency and citizenship. So they're quite different. If you're, say you're an American citizen, but you're living in France, then you're resident in France. And if you can show you've got a utility bill or a bank statement with that address in France, then that is considered good enough from the CRO's perspective to prove your residency. But equally, if you're a French citizen and you're living in the US, you're resident in the US. So the important thing here to pay attention to is residency, not citizenship. So that's the first one. The second one then, which always creates a bit more complication, is around VAT. Just going to how difficult is it to set up a VAT? How difficult is it to register for my company for VAT in Ireland? Well, again, there's no real simple answer to it. There's different levels here. So if you're an Irish, if you're resident in Ireland and you're a tax resident and you have a PPS number in Ireland, then registering your company for VAT in Ireland is reasonably straightforward, because you can do it online, and because you're resident here and you have a tax number, you can show that you are responsible for the company in Ireland and while you're resident here. If the Irish company from day one, which can quite often be the case for international companies setting up, is essentially a non-resident company, and that's where the company would be set up in Ireland, but would not have their directors and the shareholders wouldn't be resident in Ireland, then it's more difficult to register for VAT, and it can be quite difficult depending on the circumstances. In some circumstances, the company will have a lot of customers in Ireland. It will have a lot of suppliers in Ireland. It might be delivering goods to Irish customers, duty and delivery paid. So it has a strong rationale for getting VAT registered. In other cases, it might have employees in Ireland. And again, that is a very strong rationale for getting VAT registered. In the case of employees in Ireland, revenue would consider them to be people who are responsible for its trading activity in Ireland. And then they would consider them representatives of the company in Ireland. And normally then they facilitate the allocation of a VAT number to that Irish company. If you are a services business and you're setting up in Ireland as a gateway to the rest of Europe, and you don't have a lot of employees in Ireland, you don't have any employees in Ireland day one, which is reasonable, and you can't show that you have customers here because it's a small market, that can also be quite common. Then getting that registered in Ireland is a challenge. It's important to note too that it's not obligatory to be VAT registered in Ireland. You can be registered for corporation tax, you can get an EORI number, and then later on you can get VAT registered in Ireland as the level of your activity in the country increases. But from a high level, getting VAT registered in Ireland for non-resident companies is difficult, and you really need to work hard with revenue, revenue being the tax authorities in Ireland, to show that you have presence in Ireland and that you're going to build substance, is one of the words they use in Ireland. Okay, we have a question from Francois, which is deals with bank accounts. So, can an Irish limited company bank account be opened in Ireland for non-resident companies? So, okay, so you're setting up the company, I guess, Francois, and you're not resident in Ireland, and you're wondering, can you set up an Irish bank account? Well, the short answer is yes. Again, like the VAT number, you might need to show that you have presence in Ireland and you have activity in Ireland, or you're looking to put activity into Ireland. And we mainly work with Bank of Ireland, who are the biggest bank in Ireland. They will, thankfully, because of COVID times, which have been going on for quite a while previously, they would like to meet their clients. We'd ask them to fly over and we'd have a meeting with them in Dublin. But now, because of COVID and all the travel restrictions, which are ongoing, they are facilitating the setup of bank accounts via Zoom calls. So we do a Zoom call, and subsequent to that, usually within kind of 7 to 10 working days, the bank account is set up. Just one thing to note that's coming recently, there's a thing in Ireland called the RBO Register, which is the Register of Beneficial Owners. In the UK, it's called the PSC, the Person of Significant Control. It's a register of the person who actually owns the company. It's a pan-European it follows pan-European directives, and the bank will need to see that in place before they'll facilitate the opening of the bank account. So it's a new thing that the bank have picked up on. But I guess the short answer, Francois, is that yes, you can open bank accounts in Ireland, and they are multi-currency bank accounts with good online banking. It takes between 5 to 10 days post company incorporation, but you need to build a bit of a presence, and you need to show that you've got some either current activity in Ireland or the ambition to have activity in Ireland. So how long does it take? We've got a question from Bilal. How long does it take to form a company in Ireland? Typically it takes, so technically once we get all the documents, it takes between 3 to 5 days to set the company up. Once we send the pack to Companies House, it takes between 3 to 5 days for the company to be incorporated. How long does it take us to get to that stage? Normally, I tell customers that it takes about 2 weeks to set up a company, and the length of time there is mainly down to the fact that we have to, as a regulated entity, we have to run through a number of checks. I have another question there from George about anti-money laundering requirements, and that ties in with the question from Bilal, which is where, because we're a regulated entity and because of all the anti-money laundering and know your client requirements, we have to run a number of checks and with the client before we can even invoice them. So we have to identify who they are and identify where they live. And that typically is a passport and ideally a bank statement. The bank will also require this, and in many cases, those passport and bank statement needs to be certified. The copy of it needs to be certified as an authentic copy by either a police officer, an accountant, or a lawyer. So when those documents are sent to us, then we're in a position to incorporate the company. So typically you're looking at between the day you decide, okay, I want to set up my company, as a rule, within 2 weeks, your Irish company will be set up. Your bank account then is another 5 to 10 days after that. And then if you're looking at VAT registration, tax registrations, you're looking kind of at a 4 to 6 week period, and that could sometimes go to an 8 week period as well. So the company setup is reasonably straightforward and fast. The bank is reasonably quick as well. It's just the tax registrations tend to take a long time. As regard cost, it can be anything from €395 up to north of €4,000, depending on all the services you need. whether you need a corporate secretary or whether you need a registered office, tax registrations, bank setups. So it is depending on how many services you need. Okay, so just go down to the next one. Do you need to visit, do I need to visit for setting up a limited company in Ireland? So no, you don't. It can all be done remotely. So we can do everything via scanning and emailing. We do require original documents to be sent to us, but the company can be set up remotely. So it's not a full digital experience in Ireland. We do need to take the documents and physically send them to the CRO, and we're an agent for the company's house, this company registrar office, which is, and who are the people who process and set up the company. So we have an agent with them, so we can get it done a bit quicker, but it can be done. You don't need to visit Ireland, fortunately, to actually set up the company. Do directors need to be resident in Ireland? So that's like the other question. No, they don't. The directors don't need to be resident in Ireland. Ideally, they're resident in the EEA. If they're not resident in the EEA, then you get a thing called a Section 137 non-EEA director's bond, which is essentially an insurance policy that lasts for 2 years, and it allows you to set up a company with directors that are resident outside the EEA. Can anyone act as a company secretary? Yeah, so that's a pretty typical question. The short answer is yes, but the directors of the business need to be careful, because the company secretary is responsible for the compliance and the ongoing compliance of the company. So to make sure all the various compliance documents are filed on time. It is the responsibility of the directors to ensure that the person they make the company secretary knows how to get this done properly. Quite typically for non-resident companies or international type businesses, we would act as their company secretary, and we would make sure that all the filings are done in good order and everybody gets early notification of any document that needs to be signed or processed. Okay, there's another question from Peter, which is, do I need an address in Ireland? So yes, you do. You need an address in Ireland, and it can't be a PO box. We offer a registered office services that includes mail forwarding. So any documents that come in will be signed and scanned and sent to you. We would act as registered office for a huge amount of the companies we would deal with. And typically, even companies that move on and they have physical office space, they would have their registered office in one location and their physical office space in another, even within Ireland or even within the same city. It would be quite normal for an accountancy firm like ourselves to act, our corporate compliance firm, to act as the registered office for our clients. Okay, just have another question there. Can we form a company in Ireland and do the business in Belgium? Just register for VAT here in Belgium, is that possible? Yes, it is. That is very possible. So if an Irish company has business activity in Belgium, then it can register for VAT in Belgium. What we're seeing a lot is for Brexit, we get a lot of business from Brexit, and UK companies that were formerly trading in Europe, what they're doing is they're setting up Irish companies, and then they might import product from China, and they use their Irish EURI number to import the product into the hub in Rotterdam. And because the product lands in Rotterdam, it needs to be registered for VAT in Rotterdam, because that's the point of entry into the EU. So the Irish company will register for VAT in Rotterdam, and it would pay it and process its VAT over there. So that's becoming a well-established business model that's going on right across Europe. So there's no problem for an Irish company to register for VAT in another jurisdiction. There's also subsequently, if a UK company wanted to register for VAT in Ireland, they can do that without having to set up a company in Ireland. So there's a number of English companies we've dealt with that have a lot of business in Ireland, and they want to be able to take care of all the VAT and the importing into Ireland. So what they've done is the English company has registered for VAT in Ireland and is paying the VAT, and that has really helped speed up business in Ireland. So what annual paperwork needs to be filed for my company in Ireland? That's a question from Maria. So there's an annual return that needs to be filed with the companies once a year. So if you look at the lifetime of a new company, so when the company is set up, it needs to do with first annual return after 6 months. And then after the next 12 months after that, it needs to do its second annual return and its accounts. So within 18 months, it needs to file a set of accounts. And typically, they wouldn't need to be audited accounts. The threshold for audited accounts in Ireland are quite high. So within the first, it's an annual return and a set of accounts typically is what needs to be filed, and that's work that we can do for you. So do I need to hold meetings of AGMs in Ireland? That is a question from Felipe, and the answer is no, you don't, but it's kind of like everything is possibly not that simple. So you don't need to hold the AGM in Ireland, but it depends on what your requirements are. If it's a tax issue that you're concerned about and you're looking to build substance in the Irish business, then holding AGMs in Ireland with Irish resident directors and documenting that decision making is made in Ireland for the company, then that can be beneficial. And we'd have a number of clients that would hold quarterly meetings in Ireland where they would discuss the detail of the business, where they would include their Irish resident directors, and decision making then would be shown that it was made in Ireland. So I know there's international tax is very topical at the moment, so more and more companies are looking to make sure they've done their business right from a tax perspective, and sometimes the best way to do that is making sure that you have meetings there. So what identity documents do I need to provide when setting up a company in Ireland? And that's a question from Alberto. And the answer that I discussed earlier, it's a certified copy of a passport and a certified copy of a proof of address, ideally a bank statement. And those documents then are required for all of the shareholders and all of the directors. If the company structure is a subsidiary, if the owner of the company is, say, a UK company and it's a subsidiary, we need to identify who the ultimate beneficial owner of the company is. We always need to identify who the person is that controls the company, and for that person we will require a certified copy of a passport and a certified copy of a proof of address. And just a question there, I don't quite follow. What corporate will the corporate? So the company, just, I think this could be something to do with registry for VAT. So the Irish company, okay, will corporate tax increase in Ireland? Will corporation tax increase in Ireland as global taxes increase? So I've got this question a couple of times today, and I suppose the short answer is I don't know, but all my experience tells me that it probably won't. I think there's a lot of discussion about global tax rates at the moment. Ireland is a 12.5% corporation tax rate area. There's no real sign that it will increase anytime soon, is my best guess. And if it does increase, it'll increase to 15%. But I don't anticipate that the corporation tax in Ireland will increase anytime soon. I think things might change. They'll change slowly. They won't be as straightforward as everybody thinks they will be. Tax is complicated, and when you think of international tax with all the different stakeholders involved, normally things move very slowly, and the outcome that everybody reads in the newspaper headlines isn't the one that actually occurs. So I think that I'm not anticipating that the corporation tax in Ireland will change, and if it does change, it'll probably move 2.5%. But that's probably not the case. And just to follow up on the VAT question there I'm getting is that no, it's not obligatory to register for VAT in Ireland. If you're an Irish company and all your business is outside Ireland, you don't have activity in Ireland, you don't have registered resident directors in Ireland, then the Irish tax authorities will not insist that you register here for VAT. So you can register for VAT in the third country where all your activity happens, and you don't need to be registered for VAT in Ireland. Okay, so that's about 25 minutes. We got through some good questions there. So thanks again for all the questions and all the for everybody for attending. We'll try to run these on a monthly basis. And we'll send a link to everybody that's registered with the video of the webinar. So thanks very much. Goodbye.